In this lecture, we're going to be working on the cabin and the windows that you see here. And this part is probably going to be pretty straightforward. It's pretty much the same thing that you've seen me do in the last lecture, except I need to basically separate some of this geometry to get this working. Let's go ahead and hide everything and take a closer look here. So I'm going to put this back onto solid so I can see this a little bit better. And I think I'm going to start by just separating the windows from the cabin. So I'm going to select the insides of the windows like that and use Control+ sign a few times until I have just the window part selected, and then go ahead and separate the selection. So hit P, separate selection. I'm going to jump back to object mode for a minute, select the window and hide it, and then go back into edit mode on the tank. So this is the geometry we're working on right now. Let's go ahead and see if we can find a nice solid face to use as our front. Is this going to work for us? Well, it's flat against the grid, and I think it's going to work just fine. Notice this time I actually have two faces selected, and there's nothing wrong with that. So knowing that this is the front face of our object, let's go ahead and start marking some seams. So I'm going around the irregular shape here. If you look at this in side view, this is the irregular side of our object. So I'm going to start surrounding that, and I think I'm going to go right down the bottom as well. Same thing on the other side. This is a fold, so we're just going to go around like this. Okay, so if that's the top, it folds over this way. We just need to know where to put a seam on the bottom. I might need to know a little bit more about this object before I do this, because this object actually connects to an object below. So what I'm going to do is mark these seams first and then unhide everything, because I want to see how it connects to whatever's below it. Alright, I kind of get it now. So let me go ahead and link select that again and hide everything else. What I was thinking is I might get away with putting the seam right smack dab in the middle here, because nobody's ever going to see it there. It's covered up by other geometry. So let's go ahead and mark that as a seam too. I'm kind of curious to see how this unwraps. I kind of suspect it not to work, but I won't know unless I try. So let's go over to the UV editing window, select all. I'm going to zoom in on this and unwrap. Okay, something went wrong. There's something wrong. I would suspect probably something wrong with the geometry over here, because this doesn't look right to me. So let me find that area. Actually, let's do this in the default window. So whatever I have selected, that's this area right here. Something wrong here. I can kind of see it. There's definitely, it looks like there might be double edges there or something like that. So let's take a closer look. I'm going to select one of these vertices. Okay, so one of the first things I notice when I select just the vertex, anytime you select a vertex, you should see orange lines gradiating to black in all directions. So like you see this gradiating in all directions like that. Same thing over here. When I select this line, there's no gradation over here. So that means there's probably two vertices there. It's really hard to pick up on that. I'm going to fly into this and look around to the other side. It looks like there probably is. So yeah, now I have both of those vertices selected. This is a tricky situation. I think what I'm going to do is merge them together. But then I'm going to want to make sure that they're exactly even with that vertex over there. So I'm going to use my magnet with vertex selection. Grab this red arrow and just line it up with that vertex right there. So that makes us go exactly the same on the X coordinate. I'm going to turn my magnet off and come back outside here and zoom in again. Go back to ortho so it doesn't clip the sides of the faces. So now when I vertex select on that, you can see that the orange actually goes up the edge. And this should now, because I did the vertex snapping, it should be perfectly aligned on this axis as well. It might have been off just a little bit before like that, but by vertex snapping that, let me just show you again. I'll just do it from this angle this time. I have it exaggerated so that you can see it. It might have been off by just a couple of tiny little units. But if I go to vertex snap this again, use that red arrow and line it up with one of these vertices, it's perfectly in line with that vertex. Okay, let's go back to our UV editing window and try unwrapping that again. Perfect. So somehow there was a double vertex in there. They were probably spaced out just slightly, just enough to throw off the remove doubles, because I did try to remove doubles before I started unwrapping, and it didn't pick up on that. Let's see what it looks like with the texture. Looks pretty good. Everything's perfect. So I was worried for nothing. Okay. I guess I had nothing to worry about. Let's jump back to the default window, and I guess I need to unhide those windows. So let's jump back to object mode and unhide. I'm going to select just the windows and hide everything else. Go into edit mode. I'm going to select all and zoom in on this. Matter of fact, I think I'll work on one window at a time. So let me just link select one of these and zoom in on that. Okay, in a situation like this, you have basically 2 cubes here, or technically 3 cubes. Let me show you what I'm talking about. These are 2 different cubes, and if I link select with the plus sign, this is like missing one face, but basically there's one cube, there's another cube. Okay, you see that? And then the other cube is this right here. If I link select this, this is the other cube, and I guess I need to add this face to it. So this cube has 2 holes cut out in it. So that's basically what I'm going to do with this shape. This cube that I have selected right now, I'm going to treat as the front face. And that means that basically all I need to do is mark some seams along these corners here. And then also these holes. And then that should be pretty good. So go ahead and mark those seams. And then the other shapes that I pointed out, this box right here, these 2 boxes, all I need to do is mark seams inside here to split this apart on both of those. And it should be just fine. So all of those edges marked as seams. Now we go over to our UV editing window, select all, and unwrap this. So one of those windows is off. Let's figure out which window it is. So I'm going to turn this tool on and select the problem window. So it's this one over here. So let's go back to our default window and zoom in on that. Something wrong with this window. Oh. There's nothing wrong with it. I just haven't marked the seams yet. I thought, for some reason, I thought I was mirror editing or something. If you remember back in the tree lecture, I had intentionally unselected some seams, and then I said, try to imagine that we didn't know that that happened. This is a real life situation where I just spaced it. I just didn't think about it, and I forgot to mark some seams. And if you look at it in the UV editor, it looks like something is wrong. So when I selected that and zoomed in, I realized immediately, oh, there's no seams on here. And that's exactly what I was talking about in that tree exercise. So I'm kind of glad that that happened naturally. So we're going to go ahead and repeat the same steps by marking these outer corner edges here, these loops, and these inner corner edges. Go ahead and mark all of those as a seam and jump over to our UV editing window. Now with all the seams marked, let's go ahead and select all and unwrap. And that looks much better. I want to add some margin in here so we can see everything right. And probably look at this with the checkerboard pattern. Probably be a good idea to stack some of these islands too. But before we do that, I want to see the directionality of these things, because that's going to help me decide which way to stack them. So the first step is to get all of these going in the same direction. I'm going to select one of these and figure out which one is which first. So that's active selection is over here, and it's going straight up and down, so that's good. So this one is over here, and that's going up and down. Whereas this one? This is over here, and that's going sideways. So what I want to do is link select this so that I have all of that selected, and basically rotate this 90 degrees so that it's going straight up and down. Then we're going to go ahead and grab this, and this one is also turned sideways, so link select that. Notice I'm link selecting on the UV side, not on the 3D side. I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees, and notice it's upside down now, so I'm just going to hit the negative on the numeric keypad and then hit enter to lock it in. So now all of these are going in the correct direction. I wish I could say the same about the other faces, but we're going to handle that separately right now. So what I'm going to do is select this. I'm going to turn on my tool shelf for a moment and show you something. I use this a lot. I'm going to link select in here, and notice that it breaks on the seams. I have my delimiter set to delimit on seams. By default, the behavior is like this. So when you link select, it selects everything. And if you actually select seam, it won't select anything across any seams. So that'll allow you to select that entire face. This entire face is upside down, and that's selected over here. So all I want to do is rotate this 180 degrees to fix that. Let's jump ahead to the other side and do the same thing. So select this and basically link select it. And this one actually is going in the right direction, so I don't have to flip it. Now everything is going straight up and down. It's going to make it easy for me to actually snap all this stuff together. I'm going to select all over here and then turn this tool off. Keep UV and edit mode mesh selection in sync. Using island selection, I'm going to grab one of these. I should turn on my vertex snapping. I don't need this tool shelf open anymore. And just grab these. Oh yeah, turn my magnet on and just snap them together just like this. Turn off the magnet, and let's take a closer look here. I'm going to loop select all of that, grab it, put it closer to this, and then loop select all of this, grab it, and put it somewhere outside here. Let's go ahead and put this back on UV grid and go back to the default window. Now let's go back to object mode and unhide the other geometry. And at this point, I think it's safe to rejoin everything back together. So I'm going to select the tank, select all, and Control J to join everything. Now let's go back into edit mode and unhide so that we can see everything together. Just to be sure that everything is working right, let's go over to our UV editing and just kind of take a look here at what we've got so far. So it looks like I left a bit of geometry kind of scrambled up in the middle. Kind of want to separate some of this stuff right now, so I'm just going to put a little bit of spacing around some of these things. Something like that. Now I can go back to the default window and zoom out, and I want to see this with the texture on. Now we're actually making some progress. This thing is starting to look pretty good. So if you notice, we started from the top and we're working our way down. So I guess the next object in line is either going to be the exhaust here or the fenders. I'm not sure if I'm going to do one or both of those, but go ahead and try unwrapping both of those pieces. And when you're done, let's meet up in the next lecture. Good luck.